So Michael is an Australian film director and screenwriter. He studied English post-colonial literature at La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia. His artistic career first began as a poet, winning the Melbourne Fringe Festival Poetry Prize. He then moved to theatre and wrote 3 plays. In 1994, at the age of 23, he travelled to Mexico and made it his adoptive home. In 1998, while in Mexico, he began a career as a journalist while studying screenwriting at a Vicente Liniero workshop. In 2005, one of his first scripts, Naturalezas Muertas. Thank you. Won at the Instituto Mexicano de Cinematografía. In 2006, he directed his first short film, Cacahuates. Thank you. Like leap in there, Michael. On my
Cacahuates.
Thank you. Silencio followed in 2007. Though English is his native language, the bulk of his film work is done in Spanish. In 2010, Rowe directed Año Bisiesto, which garnered him the Cámara de Oro Prize for Best Film Feature Director at the Best First-Time Film Feature Director at the Cannes Film Festival. The film was well received by critics. His follow-up film, The Well, premiered at the Rome Film Festival in 2013, and now we're at the. Do you ever describe them as a trilogy?
They are.
They are a trilogy,
yeah.
Right?
When I did Leap Year, my first film, I was at Cannes. I was in Cannes, and the first party I went to, because one of the things you have to do is the parties at night.
No one's going to be able to.
Yeah. How are we at the back? Yeah, sure. Look, let's
Sorry,
give
guys.
Michael the microphone. I'll yell and you can use it.
Okay, is that better?
Nice.
Yay.
Yeah.
Cool, okay.
Thanks, Josh.
One of the first things that happened with Leap Year, my first film at Cannes, my first night, my first party there, somebody on the other side of the room, a woman, was like staring at me long and hard. And my first thought was, oh, that's nice. And then she made a direct beeline for me, looking me in the eye, and I got suddenly very scared. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? And she stood in front of me and said, are you Michael Rowe? And I said, depends. And she said, I'm a member of the jury of the selection committee for the Directors Fortnight. I said, oh, thank you. And she said, we all thought you were a woman. And I said, and the beer gave me away, or what was the... Because Leap Year is a story about an indigenous Mexican who migrates from the south of the country to Mexico City. And the solitude that she experiences in this city of 25 million people, and the isolation and the whole cultural thing. And that was not the first time or the last time that I heard that. And many people said to me, what an amazing act of ventriloquism to create such an incredibly complex and rich and deep and true female character. And actually what I did was change the name from my name to the name of a woman, because in reality we're all the same thing. It was based on my first 3 years in Mexico City as a foreigner who looked out the window every day and spoke no Spanish or little Spanish, understood nothing about the people around me, and I had to cope with 23 million people. I had no basis through which to relate to them, and then the price one pays to have people in one's life, you know. So I believe very deeply that what is true for one human being is true for all human beings. and the gender differences and the racial differences are superficial, and yeah, that I think that if you are sufficiently honest, then you will touch many other people.
When I was talking to Michael in the bar before, I mean, we're hearing him talking in English, and he's been billed as sort of Australian-born, but he told me that he spends most of his life speaking Spanish in a sort of Spanish environment. With the time that we have, we've got 40 minutes until 8 o'clock. I want to spend about sort of 10 minutes just talking about Michael's first break, sort of, how he became a filmmaker. I know we've got, sort of people in the audience that are aspiring to make their first film or write their first script, so we'll talk a little bit about that side of it. And then we'll get to Early Winter itself and talk about your process and that sort of thing. So what was the first time you got paid for it, like in terms of writing?
God. Nothing I want to remember.
Next question.
No, I wrote a couple of, I studied screenwriting in Spanish, and I practically learned screenwriting in Spanish together, because I spoke Spanish. I didn't know how to write, or I read very little, but I've never actually written. So from 1998 to 2000 I studied screenwriting and learned Spanish. And I wrote a script that subsequently I carried around under my arm, knocking on doors for about 8 years. And I was very determined. I'm not sure whether it's stubbornness or lack of imagination, but I tend to do one thing until it happens. And I knocked on doors for 8 years, and eventually I did, and during those 8 years, and I haven't really sort of talked about this much, but I got, for my first year out in 2001, I was determined to live from screenwriting.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone's ever tried to do that, it's like the worst possible living imaginable. Like, if you can...
What did it look like? What did that kind of lifestyle look like?
Living in a small rented room on a rooftop that a maid would usually do in Mexico. Writing pilots for series that never get made. Subtitling soap operas.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do anything that didn't have to do with, and so I did that for a year, and I thought, this isn't what I studied to do. I don't want to do this anymore. I wrote two, I'm not sure how to say it in English, two scripts that somebody pays you to write.
Right. Commissioned scripts.
Commissioned scripts, thank you. I wrote two commissioned scripts, neither of which were filmed. One was stretching a 15-minute short into a 90-minute screenplay for a Mexican millionaire's kid who was studying cinema in Los Angeles. And another one was a lovely guy who had a company that sold Bibles and boner pills. Lovely guy.
To the same people?
I'm not quite sure.
Right,
I'm not sure what his marketing strategy was, but he sold both of them. And he also had a distribution company in Mexico. And he wanted to make the film of his divorce, which is kind of cool because he got divorced and because he was also into Buddhist, Tibetan things. He left his wife and he went to live in the office basically with 6 Buddhist monks for a year. So it was a great idea, but we had a problem, which was that there was not allowed to be any conflict between him and his wife. He wasn't allowed to have done anything wrong, and she wasn't allowed to have done anything wrong. So anyway, that was difficult. I wrote the script, I didn't have a film.
And I guess what changed? So you said initially you were gonna there was no dollar that you would earn that wasn't from your craft, and then what shifted?
I got married.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my former wife thought it would be lovely if I earned a paycheck once a fortnight instead of once every 6 months. So I decided that I would make a living out of something else. After the first year, it's a hard thing because you're really determined to make your life out of this.
Yeah.
And to say I'm making a living out of this and I don't like the way I'm doing it, I don't like what I'm doing, I'm using all the energy that I would need to do my own work, I'm doing crap. It's a hard decision to renounce the dream in a certain way. So what I did was I quit and I got a decent paying job as a magazine editor. And so I edited magazines for about 8 years or something. And in my spare time and on my weekends, I kind of wrote scripts and I shopped around and I knocked on doors and I annoyed people and I helped out on short films and eventually I was sitting editing an article one day and I saw one of those kind of editing, but it's a stage where it's quite a bit automatic.
Yeah.
So you're reading through and your mind's doing 3 other things, and this word, or this number wandered through my mind. I just turned 37, so 37 wandered through my mind this way, and then 3 wandered through my mind the other way, which was how long I needed to turn 40. And 3 ran into something going down this way, which was 3 is the number of years that a film takes from concept to screen.
Shit, I thought it was 5.
Oh really?
Yeah, okay.
And
Maybe in Mexico it's shorter. Yeah.
Mexico,
Fuck. I think in New Zealand it's 5. I fucking hope so. Yeah. Carry on.
So I thought, shit. If I start a film tomorrow, I'm going to be 40, and so I got this midlife crisis slightly early. And I quit my day job. I spent all my savings on a camera and on a computer to edit with and a big ass flat screen. And one microphone, because that was all I had money for. And I bought all that, and then I got a producer who was just like this kid that I'd met who was very sort of active and looked like he could do it. And I wrote a script. It took a month and a half. Well, I quit my job.
Holy shit, you really hung your balls out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I quit my job. I had a wife back then.
Yeah.
I had a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
My wife was working, so it was okay.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, I'll support you. How long do you think it'll take? And I said, about 3 years. And she said, I'll give you a year.
Right.
That lasted 2 months. Anyway, I quit my job in a month and a half. I wrote the script.
Yeah.
For 2 people in a room because that was all the money I had.
Yep.
You guys won't understand me if you know anything about film. And then somebody broke into my house and stole all my gear.
Oh shit.
And then my wife left me.
Oh fuck.
And I ended up living in a very small maid's room on a roof again.
Wait, so this tale doesn't result in one of these films in your bio? This is it does?
This was leap year.
Oh great, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a long story, it's not that long.
Yeah.
So that was Leap Year. That was my first film. I ended up practically giving away the rights to it in order to get money for it. I got paid $5,000 for the script and $5,000 for directing, and I had no participation in anything in the profits, but one can.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's cool.
Fucking great. Okay, and Michael, thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, I think certainly the conversations I've had with people in the industry, we're all asking like, how do we make a living? How do we balance like earning money with, working on our art? And I know it's a kind of like painful discussion to sort of talk to filmmakers about how they make a living, but it's really important that you've shared that with us. Thank you. We're going to segue into what we've just seen now. And I'm just going to ask like a personal question because I get to ask you questions. And that like amazing scene in bed where she comes home drunk and she's, trying to distract him with sex or, whatever the motivation is there. And she does this totally authentic kind of drunken burp. Okay, so I've like become quite fixated on that moment because it just was like so authentic. And was that improvised? Did you add that in post? Like, can we just talk about the drunken burp for a second?
Suzanne's an amazing actress.
Yeah.
And she hates following the script. She hates it. So she would very generously give me my script, like 3 or 4 takes. And she'd say, right, you finished with it? I was like, yeah. Good, now it's my turn. Give me another 4 takes. And she would do her thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of complexity in this character that she brought to the character. She resisted the character as it was written quite a bit for a long time. But I think just her technique also is that it's not just me, it's not the character. She by her own admission hates following the script. She hates it. So there were times between these two, because also they've been working together for 20 years, they've known each other for a long time, workshop together with Lee Strasberg, and they've had a whole lot of life together, professionally. And so suddenly she would start improvising, and then he would bounce off her. And that scene, I think it's that scene, he walks out at the end, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't there. That was like...
Oh, really?
No.
That wasn't what was on the
Because
page.
she did what she did.
Exactly. She sort of... how did it go? She went down on him?
Yeah, was it scripted that she gave him a blowjob?
That was scripted.
Okay.
But when he rejects... When she rejects it,
and she started masturbating.
That's
Yeah,
her.
that's
wasn't
no way!
And then
Oh my God!
Then just went off. Okay, I've got to do something here.
Yeah.
And all of
So
that
Paul
was
walked
real.
out, and so I was just like, it's...
We were all
no
just
idea
going,
what it's like.
Okay,
We have-
wait.
To watch your
You
characters
take off.
do their thing, like live independently of your script and your film. I was just like,
So how did you feel in this moment? I mean, were you wanting to be like, what, cut, blah, 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 or is this like wonderful?
I got in the hang of them by
Yeah.
that stage, because I'm a screenwriter. So
Yeah.
my first film, I was like, and my second film, very much against, improvising.
Yeah.
Because
so let's-
if there's a comma there, I sweated for a week and a half because that comma's there, So I was very sort of, but actually, I found that my actors in my films are my closest creative allies. We work very closely together, we build together, we create characters together.
So should we talk about the genesis of the script? Because I know that I've got a quote from you here, which I wrote down saying that you're a little bit biased towards actors. I'm a little bit biased towards actors. Were they involved in the genesis of the script?
No.
No, okay.
I have a very strict division between church and state.
Yeah, okay.
The screenwriter does his work and beats down the director. When the director sticks his head up and says, "What? You want a 7-year-old child with a chicken and with a hen and 4 little chickens and 8 bugs in the same scene? You're out of your mind, how are you going to do that?" The screenwriter says, shut up, you can't do that. And so I try and keep forget that one part of me exists while I'm doing the other part. And then the director comes on board at a certain point of the process and says, "Oh God, who wrote this shit? Why?" So because there's something inherently antithetical between them. but you can't do one properly if the other one is present in your mind. So I try to do, very separate. I don't know if I answered the question, I forgot it.
No, so it was about whether you collaborated with your actors on the script, and the answer is no. You were very sort of separated about that, and they came in later.
Yeah, they come in later, but with Paul, for example, the actor who acted David, I started working with him a year before I started filming.
Uh-huh.
And I adjusted the script. I try with all my scripts to get the script I get very deeply into the psyche of the actors. And there's a lot of like, tell me your secrets, and I tell you my secrets, and we talk and we get drunk and we go, and then I bring the script as close to their lived psychological experience as I can. The original conflict for David was much more about struggling to repress the aggression that came out when he got drunk. And so there was a repressive violence in the whole film. That was kind of the motor of it. And after 4 or 5 days talking to Paul, I realized that his thing has more to do with guilt. And so I redid the whole backstory and structured that around. And it turned out actually that Paul was just an amazing actor, and I could have made him Martian and he would have done it incredibly.
Yeah.
But I like to kind of get my actors emotionally committed and on board, and I feel like that if you can get some of them in there and they're vicariously projecting and resolving their own conflicts in the script, then you get more reality in there.
So we're getting to your process, if you like, with the actors, which is super exciting because we got such believable performances, and if you can even call them that, they were incredible. But because I know we've got some screenwriters in the audience, can we just talk a little bit about your habit? Like, how do you approach a script? Do you have an outline? Is it highly structural? Is it free form? Can you tell us a little bit about how you write?
With terror. I hate screenwriting. I didn't realize that for a long time until I started directing. I thought I was like a very committed writer and I love screenwriting, and then I started directing. I was like, oh my god, this is 20,000 times less painful and better than screenwriting. So what I usually do is there's something they call an escaleta in Spanish, which is like a list, like a list of sequences. I guess a one-line summary of sequences. I guess it exists here too. I do that before I start. I do like general structure with plot points and midpoint and stuff like that, because I do use that. And then I do the list of sequences, and then I just write. I just go straight into it, and I have one rule, which is something I've learned over many, many years. The only bosses, the only people who I have to obey and respond to before the first draft is finished are my characters.
Wow, okay.
Like, I don't listen to anybody, I don't show the film, I don't show the script to anybody, nothing, absolutely nothing. So you go into this tunnel that lasts between a month and a half and 3 months. And it's this long, dark, horrible thing where you're shut up in a room at ungodly hours of the morning, struggling with your own demons, because also my scripts, I try and make them, very real and very personal. If they're not things that are important to me, then I don't like to do them. And there's another thing I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I do the first draft, and then after that process, I print it out. And I put it on the table and I push it away from me. And I think, all right, what I, the writer, wanted to do is this. The film, the script that came out through me is this. My obligation, my only obligation, is not to this script or the writer and his shit that he wanted to do. My only obligation is to the characters who spoke through me, who were born through me, and I bring to bear all of the skill and the talents that I have as a writer in order to tell their story in the best way possible. So sometimes you think it's going to be a film about, you think it's going to be a love story between two characters. And when you get the first draft out, you read through it with a completely open mind and look at it for what it is and not what you want it to be. And you say, yeah, that's not a love story. So this is a story of lost love. So now I have to bring everything I have to bear in order to tell the story of lost love in the best possible way. I was going to say something else, but I forgot.
Why do you think, I mean, it's something I relate to, like, why do you think an idea or a film kind of beguiles us, attracts us, and then ends up as something completely different than what we intended? Like, have you got any insight into that weird flip?
It's a bit sort of esoteric, and I'm a bit sorry about that because I'm
Go
not
for
that
it.
way. But when I write, and I don't actually write well that often, but when I'm writing well, the top of my head gets really hot and I sweat a lot. I usually write in underwear or naked because I'm sweating like that. Too much information. And there was one day, one night I was writing in bed. My ex-wife was asleep beside me, and I was kind of, and suddenly I said, oh! And my first thing was like, oh my god, did I wake her? And I thought, I said like, out loud. Why did I do that? Well, because I was shocked that this character said this to this character. And I was like, wait a minute, who's writing this shit? I'm just reading it, you know? And so this is where I realized that there really is a disassociation, if you like, between when you're really working well, like is when you're working well. And then I started reading about it. It turns out it's not just me, it's a common phenomenon with a lot of writers over the centuries. But there's a disassociation, so I don't take too seriously the whole sort of I wrote the script thing, because I think that the script is born through me, and I feel almost like a clairvoyant or something.
Yeah.
Like you channel the script, but the script belongs to the characters, it's not mine. And I've tried in my first script to force characters to do what I had planned at the beginning, and it was horrible. And until I came back and accepted them on their own terms and what happened with them and the way they needed to tell their story, the script became organic and profound and you know, worthwhile.
But then Suzanne Clement comes along and changes it all anyway.
Yes. And all for the better. But once again, this is, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it, I'm going to sound too esoteric, but everything, when a film's going to happen, it happens on its own, and it attracts the people who need to be in it, and they bring the elements they need to have. And when a film's not going to happen, you can throw all the money in the world at it, and it will never happen. And if it does happen, it'll be a bad film. You know, there's a thing, there's kind of a dynamic that I think films are like an abstract sort of being, that they're like a vortex, and they draw people in. And they concentrate them, they bring them down to celluloid, you know, it's like this point of concentration, that's all. But the people who are in the film, if you know how to be silent and listen, are the people who need to be there. But you need to be open and silent and willing to feel who needs to be there and who doesn't. It's that, I don't know.
Sort of segueing from that philosophy to how you behave on set, how hands-on are you? I mean, it sounds like you're trying to step back as much as possible. What would you describe your set presence as like with the actors and the crew?
Very hands-on.
Oh right, okay, excellent.
I don't sort of. Well, I'm very. I work extensively with the actors all the time, and then when we're on set, they do their thing. But if I can work like I worked 8 hours a day for 2 months, 6 days a week with the actors from Leaping before we did the film, and I said, we did table work, we just did readings. I don't rehearse, I don't like rehearsals. I think they rob energy from the performance. But I said, I need you to understand this character better than I do. And I was this character, so you've got to be. And she did, and she saved my ass twice on the set because she understood the character better than I did.
Can you give a specific example of how she saved your ass?
Yes. Okay. It's a long story, but there's the film's called Leap Year, and it's this woman who's been sexually abused as a child by her father, which is something we find out very late in the piece. He died 4 years previously on February 29th. So this is the first anniversary of his death. She's in her late 20s by now. And she decides to commit suicide on that day. And she arranges things in such a way that she arranges someone else to kill her. Let's put it that way. So there's a scene which I wrote, which I didn't know why I was there, but it came out, and I believe in, it was there, so I believed it was right. Where she's shaving her pubic hair. And we'd been shooting for about 10 days in a 17-day shoot. And all of she had this all-male Mexican crew around her, seeing her pretty much naked for most of the film. For 10 days. And I was embarrassed for her because of the script for so much of the time. And I felt like I was making her suffer, and it was a horrible thing. And I didn't know why this scene was there. The shaving scene at all, I had no idea. But it was there, and I was sure it was right. And so we started the shaving scene, and she started kind of, shaving the pubic hair. And I gave it about 15 seconds. I said, cut, right, that's it. Let's go to lunch. She was like, what? You don't want to shave off a little bit? And I said, no, that's fine. There's no need for that. They've seen enough of you as it is. And so she said, well, okay, I'll just stay and shave, and I'll see you at lunch. I said, okay. And she came up at lunch, and she sat next to me and said, that scene's not right the way you did it. And I said, why? And she said, well, we need to see the naked
Pubic region?
pubic region.
Wow. The shave, pubic region.
The shave, we need to see the shave. And I was like, why? And she said, well, because when she was abused, she was like 11, 12 years old. And now she's reuniting with her father through a suicide. And she said, and I was like, oh my fucking God, I had no idea. I had no idea. I was like, yes, of course, you're totally right. Of course. And so we went straight back after lunch and did it.
Wow.
But I had no idea. It's like, you have to do a lot, like you have to get the script out, you have to cast, you have to direct it. And if you're really honest, a lot of the script doesn't come from the conscious part of your mind, it comes from other parts. And sometimes you just don't know why you do things, and you need someone who's backing you up, who's intelligent, who understands what you're doing deeply. This is why I like to work with really good, intelligent actors. But that's one example.
Unfortunately, we've only got 5 more minutes. We're going to open up to questions in a second, but can you really quickly tell us which moment in the film you feel just has the most of you in it? What moment, whatever it is, just resonates the most with who you are?
No idea.
No idea? Cool. Awesome.
No idea.
Stick your hand up, folks. I've got to be like nasty timekeeper, but would anyone like to ask Michael a question? Yes, at the back. Hi.
Hi. Cinematography-wise, obviously it was chosen before shooting, and you wanted to show each scene in pretty much one shot. What was the reason for that for you?
Yeah, the whole film's in one
What was
shot.
the question?
Okay, the question was that in terms of cinematography, it was a pre-made decision that I would do one shots throughout the film, and why was that? I think it's a question. I believe in two things. I think that a film is a good script and good actors, and anything else is superfluous. And I'm being a bit, rigorous, but I think that most of the camera movements in standard cinema are either to follow the actor around, which isn't really necessary, or to reinforce an emotion that you want to give the audience, which once again, if the script is good enough and the performances are good enough, isn't necessary either. I think it's cheating, to be honest, for me. I think that she realizes that her life has changed in this moment, dolly in on her eyes. It's like, oh, really? Is the audience that stupid? Do we really have to give it to them spoon-fed? I don't believe in it. I respect my audiences. And also, I think it's much better for the actors, because with a standard way of shooting where you do the wide shot and the medium and the close-ups and the crisscross and all the stuff that Hollywood does, you can completely construct the performance in post, and it doesn't respect the work of the actors, and this way the actors perform their art. And I think that, I like films a lot, but I don't care about making a film that looks like whatever. I care about the process. I care about working with actors. I care about discovering worlds with them. I care about characters. And this, for me, is the best way to involve them and to make it work.
Fantastic. I think we've got time for, so I'm just going to tell me how much longer have we got before we need to leave?
Maybe like a minute.
Okay, so one last question. This is it, folks. Hi.
I just wondered if you could tell us a bit about your casting process, how you find the actors that you work with.
Yeah, good question.
What was the question?
Can I speak about can I speak about the casting process and how I found the actors? I have a fairly fixed technique nowadays. I choose the most difficult scene from the film with no dialogue. And I sit them down at a kitchen table in an apartment and I make them do it. And the people who can make me cry or make me laugh or whatever they have to do in that scene with no dialogue, they're the people who stay. It's there are people who, when they feel something, project it outwards and affect other people around them. They're not necessarily actors, there are just some people who do it. But when I find actors like that, I know that they're going to project an emotion onto the big screen. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who can not just put on the face and remember the lines. I'm not interested in that. I want truth. I want someone who can feel something so deeply that it can move me because I'm sitting in front of them. That's the way I do the casting.
Awesome. Trish, I wasn't clear before when we spoke to you. Is Early Winter getting a release in New Zealand?
Well, we'd love the film to be screened in New Zealand in a limited release, which is what is happening in Australia. We have a wonderful distributor from New Zealand, auteur, so we're very much hoping that exhibitors will embrace the film. We know it's a very strong art house film, and they're difficult films. It's world cinema. But if you guys talk it up, and as many, I'm off to the movie convention next week, so hopefully some New Zealand exhibitors will be keen to step up.
Great. So guys, you're the guinea pigs. Especially, I really encourage you to reflect on this film in the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours. And if it affected you as much as it affects me, tell your friends, for sure. We have to wrap things up now, but Michael and Trish will be in the foyer for like another 15-20 minutes. Please feel free. They're human beings. You're human beings. You can come up to them and talk to them and ask stupid questions.
I want to talk to them about the editing process as well, which was quite remarkable.
Great.
So,
Well, maybe we can just gather around and hear Trish sort of talk about that over a glass of wine, but we have to vacate the cinema now, unfortunately. So, thanks so much, and thanks to DEGNZ and to Michael and Trish.